The movie begins by introducing us to Chris, the main character. We see him engaged in a phone conversation with his partner, Jamie. The discussion revolves around their daughter, Willow, and it quickly becomes apparent that their relationship is strained. Chris admits to Jamie that he has yet to sign their divorce papers. This reluctance stems from his fear of the finality of their separation. Jamie, on her end, reinforces this finality, pointing out that Chris had prioritized his company over their family. She urges him to accept the reality of their situation and move on, just as she is attempting to do. Despite his reservations, Chris promises to sign the divorce papers. Meanwhile, Jamie is at home, tucking Willow into bed and expressing her love for her daughter. Later that evening, we find Chris in a supermarket, casually buying ice cream. It's here that he encounters Skye, a young woman seeking advice on selecting a bottle of wine. Their meeting seems coincidental, but it sets the stage for the events that unfold. Upon leaving the supermarket, Chris and Skye bump into each other again. Chris, displaying a kind gesture, offers Skye a ride back to her motel. It's during this journey that Skye reveals her current predicament. She shares a room with an abusive roommate named Lisa, and she hopes Lisa is asleep by now. Sensing her discomfort, Chris invites Skye to his house to wait until it's safer for her to return to her motel. Unbeknownst to both, they are being watched by a man named Ronald from a nearby window. Skye is visibly impressed by Chris's house and finds comfort by the warmth of the fire. Chris, playing the host, pours wine for them, and they begin to drink and engage in lighthearted flirtation. During their conversation, Chris shares that he's somewhat retired, having sold his home security system business, Watchdog. The evening progresses, and they venture into his extensive wine cellar to pick another bottle. As time slips away, Skye realizes it might be too late to return to her motel. Sensing the opportunity, Chris offers her to stay the night. They spend the night together, unaware of the complex and potentially dangerous web of events they are about to be entangled in. The next day, we see Skye returning to the motel where she stays. She's greeted by Ronald, who taunts her with a snide remark about her late return, often referred to as the walk of shame. This interaction is followed by a confrontation with her roommate Lisa, who is upset with Skye for not calling. The tension is palpable as Skye retreats to her room, leaving Lisa distressed and crying outside. Meanwhile, Chris is at his home, his thoughts consumed by his daughter. The bond between father and daughter is a recurring theme, and it's evident that Chris deeply misses her. In the evening, driven by his growing attachment to Skye, he visits the bar where she works. After her shift, he walks her home, and during this walk, Skye opens up about her life. She shares that she has no family and has been in and out of foster homes throughout her life, painting a picture of her challenging and lonely upbringing. Their evening takes a sudden turn when they find someone attempting to break into Chris's car. In the ensuing confrontation, the thief viciously attacks Chris, breaking his leg with a crowbar. This injury marks a significant turning point in the narrative. Soon after, Skye takes on a more prominent role in Chris's life as she wheels him into his house, now wheelchair-bound. Demonstrating a nurturing side, Skye offers to take care of Chris during his recovery. Chris, trusting her, cancels the private nurse that had been arranged for his care. He hands over his Jeep keys to Skye so she can collect her belongings, and importantly, he gives her the security codes to his house, a gesture that signifies his growing trust in her. Back at the motel, the scene shifts to Lisa, who is seen smoking, with Ronald still ominously observing from his window. Ronald engages Lisa in a conversation, reminiscing about how things were before Skye moved in and implying that he was Lisa's only true friend. However, their conversation is abruptly interrupted by Skye's return. Ronald accuses Skye of being the cause of the tension, hinting at his jealousy. He also reminds them about their overdue rent, adding financial strain to their already complicated relationship. Inside the motel, Lisa confronts Skye about her frequent absences, leading to a charged and emotional moment between the two. They share a flirtatious exchange, resulting in a kiss, revealing a complex and intimate dynamic between them. Later that night, Skye returns to Chris's house and wakes him with a kiss, signaling the start of a new phase in their relationship. They enjoy their time together, but amidst their growing closeness, Chris misses a call from Jamie, highlighting the conflicting aspects of his life. Sky then tenderly helps Chris to bed, giving him his tablets and expressing their mutual affection for each other. This scene reinforces the deepening bond between them, even as Chris's life outside this bubble continues to unfold. The next morning, the film takes a darker turn. Ronald, demanding the overdue rent, forcefully enters Lisa's room at the motel. He calls out for her, but is met with silence. In a chilling discovery, he finds Lisa's lifeless body in the bathtub, a grim and shocking development that adds a layer of mystery and suspense to the plot. In the next segment of the story, the plot thickens as Ronald finds himself speaking with Detective Lane about Lisa's death. Detective Lane is curious about Sky, particularly her identity, as they cannot find any record of her. This raises suspicions and adds a layer of mystery to Sky's character. Meanwhile, Jamie, who has been out of touch, finally connects with Chris. Chris informs her about his accident and the circumstances that have led him to be wheelchair-bound. Jamie, showing concern, offers to bring their daughter Willow to visit him on Friday. She also mentions that she can pick up the divorce papers during the visit, subtly reminding us of their ongoing separation process. After the call, Chris, feeling a bit uneasy, decides to look for Sky. However, he finds her in the shower and curiously sifts through her purse. To his surprise, he discovers pictures of Sky and Lisa together, revealing a connection he was unaware of. As he accidentally drops other items from her bag, Sky catches him in the act. She downplays the situation, saying she would have done the same if she had a stranger in her house, a response that seems to ease the tension momentarily. Later, Sky wanders through the house and stumbles upon Willow's room. She lies down and embraces one of Willow's teddy bears, a moment that signifies her longing for a connection or perhaps a family she never had. In another part of the house, Chris wakes up but can't find his phone. While searching for it, he sees a TV report about Lisa's death, which shocks him. When Sky returns with some food, he asks her about his phone, but she suggests they look for it after eating. Chris then tells Sky about Lisa's death, but she shows no reaction. In a chilling confession, Sky admits to killing Lisa, claiming that Lisa's room provided the perfect vantage point for watching him, revealing that she has been observing Chris for 2 months. Chris realizes that Sky's presence in his life is part of a con. The situation escalates when Chris tells Sky to leave, but she refuses and locks the doors instead. She possesses Chris's phone, which controls various functions in the house. In a desperate attempt to retrieve it, Chris gets tasered by Sky. The scene shifts to Ronald, who is cleaning the motel room. He discovers the telescope in Sky's room, which is pointed at Chris's house, and begins spying on the neighbors himself. Back at Chris's house, Sky begins to interrogate Chris for his passwords and security codes. Chris, defiant, refuses to comply, leading to Sky physically attacking him. Meanwhile, Ronald, still using the telescope, observes Sky's presence at Chris's house. In a critical turn of events, Sky accesses Chris's bank accounts and transfers money to her own. She then tends to Chris, apologizing for the violence, but she insists it was necessary to show she was serious. She picks up a pair of scissors, threateningly telling Chris about her next plan, involving making calls to his brokers. In a moment of desperation, Chris seizes the opportunity to grab Sky by the neck in an attempt to overpower her. However, Sky manages to stab him with the scissors, facilitating her escape from the intense confrontation. In the intense unfolding of events in the plot, Sky takes a darker turn by showing Chris a video of Jamie and Willow. This is a clear threat, meant to show Chris what could happen if he doesn't comply with her demands. Chris, terrified for their safety, pleads with Sky not to harm them. She responds ambiguously, implying that their safety depends on his cooperation. Sky then methodically moves through Chris's house, taking pictures of his valuable paintings, further indicating her intent to steal his possessions. The plot thickens when there's a knock at the door, and Sky opens it to reveal Kiju, the car thief. This revelation exposes Kiju as Sky's accomplice in the elaborate scheme against Chris. Kiju assures Sky that he will find buyers for the artworks and the expensive wine collection in Chris's cellar, confirming their plan to liquidate Chris's assets. Meanwhile, Chris is left helpless in the kitchen, his mouth sealed shut with tape. From his confined position, he notices Ronald approaching the house. Ronald breaks a window to gain entry, but Skye, alerted by the security system on the phone, quickly heads back to the house. Upon entering, Ronald engages in conversation with Chris. He reveals that he has done his homework on Chris and is aware of his wealth. Chris, desperate for help, pleads with Ronald, who seems indifferent to the urgency of the situation. Despite Chris's warnings about Skye's imminent return, Ronald demands money for his assistance. In a bid to persuade Ronald, Chris offers him a priceless Picasso painting. Seeing the value in the offer, Ronald begins to untie Chris. The situation escalates when Skye unexpectedly returns, causing Ronald to panic. She quickly locks the doors, trapping Ronald inside. In a tense standoff, Ronald threatens Skye with a knife, but he ultimately flees with the painting, looking for another escape route. Skye, armed with a sword, pursues Ronald, and in a dramatic confrontation, stabs both him and the painting. Meanwhile, Chris manages to free himself from the wheelchair and makes a desperate attempt to escape using a jet ski. However, his escape is thwarted when the jet ski hits a rock, throwing him into the path of an oncoming car. The driver, Sebastian, stops just in time and assists Chris, but it's soon revealed that Sebastian is also in cahoots with Skye. He brings Chris back to the house, where Skye awaits. Inside, it's revealed that Sebastian is Skye's stepfather and the mastermind behind the identity theft scheme. He expresses disdain for Chris's wealth and his perceived lack of generosity with it. Later, Skye confronts Chris, who, in a moment of vulnerability, confesses his love for her and his willingness to have given her everything. Skye dismisses his sentiment, focusing instead on the $14 million in bearer bonds that she intends to steal from him. Chris realizes the gravity of the situation. Skye needs his thumbprint to access the safe in the bank. In a final twist, Sebastian steps in to prepare Chris's thumb, indicating their readiness to proceed with the final phase of their plan. This moment heightens the tension, leaving us on the edge of our seats as the plot reaches its climax. The tension escalates as Jamie arrives at the house with Willow. Unaware of the danger inside, Willow heads to her room, while Jamie immediately senses that something is amiss. Skye, seizing the opportunity, finds Willow and brings her to Jamie. Jamie, increasingly anxious, asks for Chris. Instead of Chris responding, it's Sebastian who approaches, heightening Jamie's sense of alarm. She demands to know Chris's whereabouts, but before she can get any answers, both she and Willow are locked in a closet with Chris. As they are confined in the closet, Chris notices the air vents and suggests a possible escape route for Willow. He tells Jamie about the criminal's pursuit of the bearer bonds at the bank. In a surprising revelation, Jamie discloses that she had already removed the bonds, following her lawyer's advice to use them as leverage in case their divorce proceedings turned contentious. Meanwhile, Sebastian and Skye, having accessed the bank's safe, are dismayed to find the bonds missing. As they return to the house, they realize Willow has escaped from the closet. Upon their arrival, they frantically search for their captives. Chris, Jamie, and Willow, having escaped from the closet, try to remain hidden, but Chris is soon discovered. In a tense moment, Sebastian demands that Skye kill Chris. However, Skye hesitates, and in a shocking turn of events, she shoots Sebastian instead when he yells at her. Chris, seizing the moment, strikes Skye with an axe, managing to escape with his phone. As he leaves a trail of blood, he cleverly uses his phone to call the police and create distractions around the house. When Skye follows the trail, Chris ambushes her, leading to a violent confrontation. Although Skye initially overpowers Chris, Jamie intervenes. In the ensuing struggle, Skye injures Jamie in the leg with the axe. As Chris and Jamie, injured and vulnerable, cower in front of Skye, the unexpected happens. Skye is suddenly shot in the back by Willow. The sound of approaching sirens fills the background, signaling that help is on the way. Jamie rushes to her daughter, and as Skye lies dying, she reveals her true identity to Chris, saying her real name is Margaret. The movie concludes with this dramatic revelation, leaving us to ponder the complexities of the characters and the consequences of their actions. The sound of sirens growing louder signals the end of the ordeal, but the emotional and physical scars of the events will undoubtedly linger for the characters involved. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.